Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today is Peter Lavelle, co-host and co-founder of The Gaggle, as well as host of RT's talk show Crosstalk. The other day, The Atlantic, which we've covered in the past, always unfavorably, published an article, mercifully short this time, about the media in the post-Trump era. What are the media going to do? And the tone of the article is, of course, complimentary, self-adoring. The thrust, to the extent that there is really much of a thrust to a not very strongly argued piece, is that journalists have done a fantastic job covering Trump, and they've become celebrities. They've won book contracts. They appear on late night talk shows with comedians, and they acquire hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers. What happens now? Do they retain their celebrity status? Do they go on appearing on the Jimmy Fallon's talk show? Or do they now adopt a critical stance towards Biden? And of course, to a man and woman, they all say that, well, of course, we can't possibly do what we did to Trump to Biden, because, of course, Biden is not an incorrigible liar and a terrible human being as Trump is. But because we're journalists, we will nonetheless pursue the truth, and we will fearlessly hold authorities' feet to the fire. A pathetic article. What's your take, Peter?
Well, pathetic is the word. And what I think is, this article is written by a journalist, like other journalists. Let's use the metaphor of a fish. I mean, if the fish don't notice the water, do they? Because they're in the water, all right? And what the author of this article fails to realize is that he is driven, and his colleagues are driven by ideology and hate. Okay, has nothing to do with journalism whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the article itself it's mild, it holds together. It's not very logical. I mean, their intellectual abilities have been numbed so much, is that they cannot there's no self introspection about what they did. And what they did wasn't journalism whatsoever. It was hackery is what it was. They destroyed journalism. And now they've put themselves into a position of, can we actually return to what we should be doing, like informing the public? And he essentially said no. I mean, read between the lines, is that they're going to continue down their merry way because they will support the power that be, because there's always that imminent threat, Trump and Trumpism and the Trump supporters. And so they've given themselves cover. They've actually pardoned their own sins in their own secular religion for what they have done and what they will do in the future. Donald Trump was a bad person. Biden is a good person. Well, that's a very Manichaean approach to the world, and it has nothing to do with what the mission of journalism is all about. Joe Biden could be very, very corrupt, and there is growing evidence that he is. And it's up to the fourth estate to start looking into that.
Right.
And
I think that
what they have done is that they're the ones that created this abyss for themselves. They've painted themselves into a terrible corner because they were not honest. They were not honest with their readers and their viewers. And they can't escape it now. They can't escape. And so what is going to happen, and I want to maybe go into a little bit later, is that Joe Biden will be covered by progressive media. And of course, the Fox Newses of the world will cover it. And so this fissure that we have, that Donald Trump exposed to the world, he exposed it. He didn't create it. He exposed it. And now it's a permanent fixture because journalists have lost their way and they're intellectually dishonest.
Yes, but that's the thing that, as you said, it's an uncritical stance taken by somebody who is within that mainstream media mode. So when he quotes some journalists say, well, of course, Biden is not an incorrigible liar the way Trump is. Anybody reading it saying,
That's an
well, let me see.
assumption.
He was a plagiarist. He had to drop out of a presidential race because of multiple plagiarism allegations. He had lied about his academic record, a ridiculous lie. Then he more recently came up with nonsense about having been arrested in South Africa, an absolutely ridiculous lie, which can easily be checked. I mean, a US senator being arrested in South Africa is a very big deal. I mean, it takes 2 minutes to do a news search for that. It never happened. Biden had to admit it never happened. We of course know, as you said, the scandals that have already surrounding the whole Biden family influence peddling operation. So for him to just quote a journalist blithely saying, well, Biden is not an incorrigible liar like Trump is, what the hell are you doing? You're posing as a journalist and you allow nonsense like that to be peddled?
Yeah, but that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't ask him questions about it, then he doesn't lie. You see what I mean? And it's a ridiculous, it's farcical. It's farcical. Okay. And now we will have a juxtaposition. Love him or hate him, Donald Trump was amazingly transparent. Okay. Now we're going into a mode where not only will the incoming administration not be open to the press won't press for it. Okay. So this is the worst possible outcome whatsoever, which of course will fuel on the people that feel that they've been cheated and lied to. And I'm talking about Trump supporters. They're going to see it unfold in front of their eyes, and they're going to be absolutely right. Say, you never asked your guy a question, but you never ceaselessly asked and attacked the president we supported, and it's going to be quite obvious. I mean, already on the margins. I mean, this pathetic article, is part of an offensive to kind of start preparing the public that there's going to be a different kind of coverage. But don't worry, we got your back, okay? And the thing is that there's a lack of ideological reflection in that article, and that's the problem with this kind of journalism. Just as an aside, George, in reading the article, and he mentioned all of the people that became famous off of the Trump era. Did you know any of them? I didn't, okay? It shows that I don't even care about that ecosphere, okay, at all, okay? Because it's a mutual admiration society, except for Jim Acosta, which is pathetic in himself.
That's right. And these books, they publish these books are absolutely worthless. In 18 months' time, no one is even going to pick up, they'll be sold at Strand Books in New York City for $1. No one's going to pick them up because they will be seen to be absolutely ridiculous, silly little pot boilers written by nonentities. So none of these books matters. And of course, as you say, they've already shown themselves to have missed innumerable stories. I mean, you think just during the campaign, we had something that should have been a story that was obviously the Hunter Biden story, a major story. I mean, something the public should have known about before an election. And then, you go back to what about the pre-Trump era? You think of, well, how did they cover Obama? Didn't cover Libya, Syria, Ukraine. 3 absolutely calamitous foreign policies of Obama. Domestically, he spied on journalists more than any other president had done. He spied on a rival's political campaign using the resources of the government against a political opponent. Where was the media? I mean, where was Jim Acosta, shaking his fist? None. They were all, fawning on him, as they still are fawning on him. And so that again, this reporter seemed completely oblivious to all of that.
Oblivious. And what's happened here is that I don't know what kind of level of self-reflection and honesty these people have, because seriously, I mean, what they've done to journalism is catastrophic, and I don't see a way back. Is that, when in that article, they use the term resistance. Well, that means you're picking a side, okay? You've picked a side, and you can't unpick now. You can't do it. You've already allowed yourself to be sucked in to this paradigm where you are stenographers for the people that you're supposed to be supporting. Okay, and what will happen is that you're going to get more and more people going out and doing the work for themselves. Okay, I think of, like, what Will Tucker does, Glenn Greenwald, and more of them are going to come out, and Jimmy Dore, for example, will also come out and put the fire to their feet here. And I am absolutely convinced. I already mentioned it, but I'm absolutely convinced is that a lot of progressives, they already realize what's up here. They realize that the Democratic Party and their pliant tools in the liberal media are going to work in sync. And that is not in their interest here. And so we're going to see this fissure inside the Democratic Party get worse and worse, because you're going to just say, okay, Trump is gone. Good. We're all happy about that. Fine. But this guy, he's not doing anything about what we want to do. As a matter of fact, what did he want to do during the campaign? Because nobody covered it. Okay. I mean, there is a vacuum created right now. Okay. And people are not going to allow that to sit for very long. And at the end of the day, Joe Biden, if you look his entire half-century time in government, he's a liberal Republican. And nobody wants to say that, okay?
Right. Okay, I think that's right. And I think what's really important, I mean, on the question of the threat to media freedom, is Trump posed no threat, none. He'd get into a to-do with Jim Acosta during a press conference, but that's a reflection of the fact that Trump respects the press. I mean, if he's getting into a banter with a reporter, that shows a president who takes seriously reporters. And then, even if he calls them bad names and he calls you an enemy of the people, what's he gonna, have any kind of coercive measures being used against Acosta? No. Acosta's become a celebrity. He's on TV.
Got a book out of it.
Yeah. Whereas the real threats that are coming to media freedom, which are coming from the internet giants, who now openly take it upon themselves to deplatform people, to ban stories that they don't like. I mean, they're actually censoring the president of the United States. That's where the threat to press freedom arises, not from Trump. And I think, as Greenwald wrote an interesting article the other day saying, well, if Trump were a dictator, how come he didn't use the pandemic to grab power for himself? This would have been the golden opportunity. On the contrary, he took the opposite side, which is he was against lockdowns. It was the states who were demanding lockdown, and it was people like Biden and the Democrats who were demanding that Trump impose almost martial law, impound industries, like as if it's a warlike measure that, your industry should be grabbed and be assigned tasks by government. Trump never did that. So what kind of a dictator was he?
Yeah, and the interesting thing, I'm glad you brought up the big tech here, because to kind of go further along with my argument earlier, is that again, you have the mainstream legacy media, CNN, MSNBC, and the like. They will go along with the new administration and not ask hard questions. I mean, it's going to be more like puppies and the color of your socks, and how was your shower today? Did you fall down? Okay, but I'm going to be very interested to see how big tech deals with the fissures inside the Democratic Party, because stage one has been done. It's been complete. We had the Hunter Biden story. We had the New York Post story. They've shown their cards of what they're going to do and the lengths that they will go. Okay, and so that is phase one. Now, phase two is in power. Now, are there going to be voices within the Democratic Party that are afraid of this, the cutouts that these big tech companies have, or will they now be targeted? See, what I'm saying is the field is getting more and more narrow. Okay, and who's going to be able to call and ask for an action by Google or Facebook to cut this person off? Okay, what they're doing is what they did to Trump and his movement is that they're the ones that went to war with the media. I mean, not with Trump. And Trump didn't go to war with them. He was the target. They weren't the target. He was the target. And now we're going to get the field will get thinner and thinner, and that's going to create even more tension and divisions inside the country, because most people would say, "What is going on? You know, what are the policies here?" And we'll see what the press corps looks like. Who's going to be allowed in? Is Fox going to be cut out? I mean, I think Breitbart was already pushed out. I mean, Alex Jones is one thing, and he's a one-off thing. No, he was the example where everyone else will be feel the strong arm of big tech. And it's like I said, I'll be very curious who will be doing the bidding. Will it be the big tech, or will it be the mainstream media and the Democratic Party? Who's going to lead the dance, George? Because
big tech,
because it's already been accepted. It's already been accepted that that's the new paradigm.
Well, that's it. I mean, big tech and the mainstream media are marching in lockstep. Now, there will be a mainstream media consensus that will be forged. And the mainstream media consensus will be that if we attack Biden, we are helping Trump, who no doubt will be essentially creating an alternative administration in Mar-a-Lago. So there'll be this, essentially an alternative government waiting in the wings, like a little like de Gaulle in the 1950s.
Yeah, well, a shadow cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a kind of a shadow government. So the mainstream media will be, if we criticize Biden, if we do anything negative about Biden, we are fueling the return of Trump. We're helping Trump. We mustn't do anything at all that would help Trump. And that has always been the way with the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats always rally around that cry. If we attack the leader, we are helping, well, it used to be Newt Gingrich, George W. Bush, we are helping Trump. And I think that's where that's where the media consensus, which is nothing negative about Biden must appear.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the interesting thing is that they're going to work on the assumption that Trump is out there, the boogeyman is out there, irrespective of what Trump's plans are. I mean, he's like the phantom, okay? And that is always going to be the default position for them, not to criticize Joe Biden. Don't criticize Joe Biden for reigniting the Syrian war. Don't criticize Joe Biden for increasing tensions with Russia. Don't criticize Joe Biden for being lax on trade deals, okay? I mean, see, they're all forgetting why Trump was elected in the first place in 2016. We keep going back to, that's ground zero for all of this. We have to keep going back. They refuse to do a postmortem of what they did wrong. And as a matter of fact, during the Trump years, they got it further wrong. They went down that rabbit hole even deeper. And they don't even, like I said, fish don't even realize they're in water. It's the same case with these people here. They don't realize how far they've dug themselves in.
No, I think that's exactly right. And I think what's clear in this article in The Atlantic is how little reflection that they're undertaking. The only thing they seem to be concerned about is, hey, we're not going to get these invitations to the late night talk shows anymore. We're not going to be showing how clever we are, and we can make these little jokes and have our little repartee with Jimmy Fallon. They're not even thinking about anything else. And I think some of the reporters were saying, well, of course, what we're going to be doing now is covering the online disinformation. Now, whenever I hear journalists talking about we're going to cover online disinformation, essentially they're going to be police vigilantes or snitches, helping the internet platforms. Hey, why don't you get rid of this person? Why don't you deplatform? And this person is writing about election fraud. This is really dangerous. Why don't you get rid of? This is what they've been doing for years. CNN has been playing this little game for years, trying to deplatform people, kicking people off, essentially from any visibility. And it's nothing to do with Alex Jones. I mean, it's pretty much anybody that CNN doesn't like, and they openly are saying that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to go after the critics of Biden and try to get them essentially deplatformed.
They're not going to cover policy. They're going to cover conformity. That is their path forward here. Okay, and it fits very well. Okay, and of course, you can go on Jimmy Fallon and all these. I don't even know the rest of them anymore. They ceased being funny a long time ago. But I mean, can you think how pathetic it's going to be? You're going to have this New York Times journalist or a CNN a correspondent. They go on these talk shows. I got rid of this person. I did it. I got rid of that guy. It's going to be like a medal of honor now. It's so bizarre. And this cancel culture, which they invented, is only going to get more intense. And always these things turn on themselves. And then it's I was just reading Richard Pipe's book on communism, and it's a real short volume. It's part of a series of books here, and it brought back memories of how Stalin came to power, how he got forced his colleagues against each other to fight each other. And of course, once they exhausted themselves, he came in and got rid of them both at the same time. This is the same thing. These things repeat with remarkable consistency.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that the media, which did a very bad job during the sleepy Obama years, with their obsequious coverage, with their failure to cover any of the serious stories, and then went into a kind of hysterical, over the top, ludicrous coverage of Trump. Now, seem to be saying, okay, well, now we're going to revert back to the Obama years. Well, what's going to happen? Well, there'll be a return to whether Trump himself or a Trump-like figure, because you cannot do this. You cannot go on pretending that you are the press and that your task is to have an informed public. Your task is to hold the government's feet to the fire, when really all you are is a public relations arm of the powers that be. And you're even open about it. I mean, you make no secret that that's exactly what you're trying to be. And this is, you're there to make one faction of government popular.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's so interesting to say that they will lose readers, they will lose viewers, but they don't care, okay? Because we don't, you're not virtuous enough to be in our clan, in our group, our tribe, okay? Because we're self-selecting, and you're not welcome. I mean, that is completely opposite of what they should be doing. Attracting eyeballs, getting clicks, getting people involved in the kind of reporting that you have, but they don't care. They're not interested in it. Okay, and plus, people have to understand what's going on in media. Media is intensely monopolistic. I mean, there's like 6 major corporations now, and the people that populate management and a few levels on, they do